just over 3 years of political turmoil, the UK has finally left the European Union. In the process, the UK became the first nation to leave the European bloc. But as the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said, it was just the beginning and not the end. Good morning, I'm Sarah Sapsanama and these are the headlines of the hour. The Central Working Committee members of the ruling NCP flayed the leadership. The issue of MCC likely to get more complicated in the coming days. Government reports suggest massive financial irregularities in the social security schemes under different headings. The government coughing up 40 billion rupees annually apart from pension funds. The UK officially exits from the European Union after 47 years of membership. The historic moment ends over 3 years of political tussle since the Brexit referendum. And Dominic Thiem sets up a title clash against the defending champion Novak Djokovic in the finals of the year's first Grand Slam Australian Open. Women's final today. Let's begin with the national political updates. The Central Committee meeting of the ruling Nepal Communist Party has plunged into further uncertainty with regard to the government's Millennium Challenge Corporation or the MCC agreement with the US. A majority of members of all the 15 intra-party groups formed to hold discussions on the political report presented by the chairman duo have expressed their concern towards the government's preparation to endorse the MCC agreement through the parliament. Meanwhile, the leaders of 4 different groups presented their views on the issues raised in their respective groups at yesterday's meeting. The leaders of all the 4 groups are reported to have opined that the endorsement of the MCC would not augur well for the country's interests at this juncture. The leaders have also urged the party leadership to clarify on the issue at the Central Committee.
यो एउटा एमसीसी को विषयमा त त्यो भइहाल्यो हैन अब पार्टीमा एउटा धारणा बनाएर जानुपर्छ भन्ने समूहकै थियो अनि त्यो विषय भइहाल्यो त्यसपछि खास गरेर अहिले अब यो सरकारको समीक्षाहरू हैन अब सरकारले समृद्धि नेपाल सुखी नेपालीको जुन राष्ट्रिय आकांक्षा छ त्यो आकांक्षालाई पूरा गर्नको निम्ति अहिले भएको अब सरकारको कामहरूलाई अब समीक्षा गरेर जाने.
Even as only 4 of the 15 groups came up with their decisions at yesterday's meeting, leaders of almost every group flayed the working modality of the government and the party leadership. They were of the view that the performances and statements of ministers themselves have rendered the government unpopular among the public. The leaders also alleged the government of failing to come up with any concrete measures to curb the growing instances of corruption at the local, provincial and central governments. Likewise, the leaders alleged the party leadership of being mired in nepotism when it comes to sharing government responsibilities and that the party mechanism too has turned sluggish, replete with mismanagement in recent days. The central members also expressed their discontent, citing that the leadership has failed to ensure participation of women members at the state's high-ranking positions and that the government lacked preparation to tackle the novel coronavirus in case of its outbreak in the country. And moving on, the government, apart from spending a hefty amount on pension funds, has been coughing up 40 billion rupees annually in the name of social security. The government, however, lacks a clear policy identification of the target group, leading to a massive misuse of the public fund. The government spent 38.77 billion rupees on social security heading, along with 40 billion rupees on pension funds 2 fiscal years ago. The government has been sanctioning money on social security headings such as other, social help, scholarships, treatment grant, among others. Even as the budget amount under different headings is increasing every year, the government has failed to adopt a clear-cut policy. The government also lacks the data on the social security assistance availed by the target group. The then UML government in 1994 had introduced a number of social security programs such as welfare allowances for senior citizens, single women, physically challenged, endangered groups. The subsequent governments over the years have increased the social security headings to over a dozen now. A proper monitoring of these programs were never conducted, while provincial government and local government are now spending money haphazardly on their own. In the absence of clear-cut and a one-window policy, questions are now being raised on the annual spending of 40 billion rupees under different social security headings. Since these programs are run without identifying the target group, the government reports on the issue have pointed out to massive financial irregularities. And with that, we'll take a short break here. For more news, stay with us. Welcome back. The government had announced of allowing non-resident Nepalese to invest in Nepalese share market during its budget announcement earlier this year. However, it has failed to implement the decision. The indecision on part of the central bank and the Securities Board has hampered the implementation of the government's directive. The central bank has expressed concerns that the foreign currency reserve would face a hit if the NRNs sold their shares, while the Securities Board has remained doubtful about the regulation of the decision. The then Finance Minister Surendra Pandey had announced of welcoming NRNs to invest in the Nepalese share market back in the Nepalese fiscal year 2067-68. The directive was reiterated in the subsequent budget announcements as well. However, NRNs have still not been able to invest in the Nepalese share market due to lack of confidence exhibited by the Securities Board and the central bank. Following a disastrous share market performance, a special government committee had recommended to implement the NRN investment in share market with a mandatory 3 years of lock-in period that NRNs would need to abide by. Under the provision, any NRN who sold their shares would not be able to take the earnings abroad until 3 years' time. This provision was to protect the central bank's foreign currency reserve. However, the Finance Ministry has failed to open the share market for NRNs. Based on the Non-Resident Nepali Act, NRNs can open a bank account in Nepal and repatriate their money. The Investment and Technology Transfer Act also allows NRNs to invest in Nepalese share market. However, the acts are unclear about the process of investment, amount of investment and repatriations. The NRN leadership has urged the government to resolve the confusions at the earliest. Experts have stated the government's inability to facilitate NRN investments despite the urgency of the hour as lack of seriousness in strengthening the share market. Now moving on, Nepal Rashtra Bank has tightened its news on advertisements on social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, among others. The central bank has come up with the provision citing that advertisements have been published on social media sites in an illegal manner. According to the new provision, any monetary transactions regarding advertisements on social media would now onwards be subject to legal prosecution. Banks, financial institutions, along with hotel and restaurant businesses and other corporate organizations were found to put their advertisements on social media. The central bank does not allow exchange of currencies during the payments for foreign advertisements posted on social media. The central bank has restricted advertisements on social media platforms as per the provision included in the newly introduced monetary policy. With that, we move on to the international update. The UK has officially left the European Union after 47 years of membership and more than 3 years after it voted to do so in a referendum. The historic moment, which happened at 23 hours or 11 GMT, was marked by both celebrations and anti-Brexit protests. Candlelit vigils were held in Scotland, which voted to stay in the EU, while Brexiteers partied in London's Parliament Square. In a message released on social media an hour before the UK's departure, the Prime Minister said that for many people this was an astonishing moment of hope, a moment they thought would never come. He added that for all its strengths and for all its admirable qualities, the EU has evolved over 50 years in a direction that no longer suited Britain. Prime Minister Johnson also said that this was not an end but a beginning and a moment of real national renewal and change. Brexit parties were held in pubs and social clubs across the UK as the country counted down to its official departure. Hundreds gathered in Parliament Square to celebrate Brexit, singing patriotic songs and cheering speeches from leading Brexiteers, including Nigel Farage. Meanwhile, pro-EU demonstrators earlier staged a march in Whitehall to bid a fond farewell to the Union, and anti-Brexit rallies and candlelit vigils were held in Scotland. And with that, we have more news coming up, but right now it's time for yet another short break. In our Public Voice segment, we had asked the residents and traffic police personnel in Surkhet district what should be done to curb the frequent road accidents. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
Public Voice.
दुर्घटना कम गर्नुपर्छ अनि दुर्घटनामा पर्नु हुँदैन र अरूलाई बचाउनु पर्छ बच्नु पर्छ यी कुराहरु मनैबाट भित्री मनैबाट जबसम्म आउँदैन सोचविचार आउँदैन तबसम्म गाह्रो छ।
यो टिप्परको टाइम मिलाउनु पर्यो टिप्पर र ट्रक
बाटो घाटो राम्रो हुनु पर्यो अब मान्छेहरुले पनि जताभावी अब बाटो नकाट्दिनु होला
जनता आफैमा सचेत हुनुपर्छ ड्राइभर मात्रै सचेत भएर नि हुँदैन
गाडीमा हिँड्दाखेरि एउटा जाडक्सी खाएर नहिँड्नुहोस् र एउटा एकातिर गाडी चलाइरहेछ अर्कोतिर गर्लफ्रेन्ड पर्सी मस्किरहेछ फोन गरेर
गन जिम्मेवारी सबै दुर्घटना हाम्रो पनि हो भन्ने हामीले सम्झ्यौ भने दुर्घटना निम्न अवश्य हुन्छ।
खाल्टाखुल्टी मात्रै छ बजेट यत्रो बजेट छ बजेटको कुनै सदुपयोग गरिएको छैन।
It's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
And the question is, what should be done to make social security mechanism more organized? Your options are A, one window policy, B, policy level clarity, and C, identify the target group first. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Time now for the sports update.
Sports news.
The 10th round matches of the ongoing Martyrs Memorial A Division League are to begin today onwards. The two matches are slated for today at the capital's Dashrath Stadium. In the first match, scheduled to kick off at 12 noon, relegation zone team Saraswati Club will face 4 times champions 3 Star. Following a 2-0 loss against Machindra in its previous match, 3-star coach Meghraj Kesi had stated that 3 Star's title race had ended for the season. However, with 4 wins, 2 draws and 3 losses, the mathematical chances are still alive for 3-star to win the league. The Patan-based team is in the 5th position in the league table with 14 points. Although relegation zone Saraswati is fresh from a 4-3 win over Himalayan Sherpa club, 3-star is looking forward to clinching an easy win over Saraswati today. The second match of the 10th round of the Martyrs Memorial A Division League will see Machindra up against departmental team APF. Machindra, that is in the 2nd position in the league table, is looking forward to back full points to maintain its title race, while APF is looking forward to a win to avoid the relegation zone. The match is scheduled for a 3 p.m. kickoff at Dashrath Stadium. With that, it's now time for our special segment, Media Watch.
Lawmaker of the ruling Nepal Communist Party, Agni Sapkota, was elected unanimously as the new Speaker of the House of Representatives on Sunday. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court on the same day could not conduct the hearing on the writ petition filed by senior advocate Dinesh Tripathi last Friday, demanding to scrap the process to appoint Sapkota as the Speaker, alleging his involvement in the murder of Kavre's Arjun Lama during the conflict era. The case, which was assigned to a single bench of Justice Hari Phuyal, was deferred on Sunday. The bench could not look into the writ as Justice Phuyal refused to take the case, stating that he had pleaded on behalf of the victims in another writ against Sapkota prior to being appointed justice at the Supreme Court. Newly elected Speaker Sapkota was administered the oath of office and secrecy by President Bidyadevi Bhandari on Monday amidst a special program held at the President's official residence Shital Niwas in Maharajganj. Vice President Nandabahadur Pun, Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, Chief Justice Cholendra Samsher Rana, ministers and heads of constitutional bodies were present at the program. Following the oath-taking ceremony, Speaker Sapkota reached the Parliament Secretariat and assumed office. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court on Tuesday refused to issue a stay order over the writ petition challenging the nomination of Sapkota for the post of Speaker. However, the Apex Court directed the government to provide a progress report on the investigation on the case filed against Sapkota at the Kavre Police Office. A single bench of Justice Sapna Pradhan Malla, after a 2-day hearing on the writ, ruled on Tuesday that an interim order could not be issued to prohibit Sapkota from being Speaker merely on the charge of murder. This is Abhyuday Shrestha for Kantipur News Desk.
And before wrapping up, here's a look at the top stories once again. The Central Working Committee members of the ruling NCP flay the leadership. The issue of MCC likely to get more complicated in the coming days. Government reports suggest massive financial irregularities in the social security schemes under different headings. The government coughing up 40 billion rupees annually, apart from pension funds. The UK officially exits from the European Union after 47 years of membership. The historic moment ends over 3 years of political tussle since the Brexit referendum. And Dominic Thiem sets up title clash against the defending champion Novak Djokovic in the finals of the year's first Grand Slam Australian Open. Women's final today. That's all for the moment. Our next English bulletin will be at 11 this morning. Keep watching Kantipur TV HD for more news and entertainment. Bye for now.